Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness, I whispered, watching my reflection in the polished steel of the knife block. The evening light cast long shadows across my kitchen counter, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear my son's video game music drifting down the stairs. My hands didn't shake as I reached for my phone, reading the message one more time. Just 4 months ago, I had found that hotel receipt tucked into my husband's jacket pocket, and now here I was, staring at the text that would shatter our 13 years of marriage. The numbers in our joint account had been steadily declining over the past few months. Daniel thought he was being clever, thought I hadn't noticed. But I had learned from the best. Watching my father destroy my mother taught me everything I needed to know about men who think they're untouchable. 6 years ago, when I found my mother's body after my father's betrayal drove her to despair, I made a promise. Never again would I be caught unprepared. The message notification lit up my screen again. I could picture him now, probably sitting in some overpriced hotel room with my sister, thinking he had won. Daniel had always underestimated me, treated my boutique business as a cute little hobby. He never bothered to check whose name was actually on the house deed, never questioned why I insisted on keeping my personal accounts separate. Now, as I watched the numbers in our joint account drop to 0, I allowed myself a small smile. "Mom." Ethan's voice carried down the stairs. "Is Dad coming home for dinner?" For a moment, I closed my eyes, letting the familiar weight of motherhood settle over me. My 11-year-old son, innocent and unaware that his father had just emptied their college fund to start a new life with his aunt. The timer on the oven beeped, a reminder that normal life continues even when your world is falling apart. "He's working late, sweetheart," I called back, my voice steady and calm. The lie tasted bitter, but it would protect him. For now. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was my sister. Ashley. 9 years younger, the baby of the family I had practically raised after our mother's death. The betrayal stung deeper coming from her, but perhaps I should have seen it coming. She had always been drawn to forbidden things, always wanting what wasn't hers to take. "Madison," her message read, "we need to talk. Daniel says you're not answering his texts." Of course I wasn't answering. I was too busy watching my plan unfold, piece by carefully arranged piece. While Daniel thought he was draining our life savings, he had no idea that the real money, the proceeds from my flourishing boutique chain, the inheritance from our mother, the careful investments I had made over the years, was all safely tucked away where he couldn't touch it. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made me quickly lock my phone. Ethan appeared in the doorway, his dark hair falling into his eyes just like his father's used to. "Mom, is everything okay? You look different." I forced a smile, reaching for the plates to set the table. "Everything's fine, honey. Just some business stuff to handle." Another lie, but necessary. Children shouldn't have to bear the weight of adult betrayals. My phone started buzzing repeatedly, a cascade of messages from Daniel flooding the screen. The first one hit like a physical blow. "Madison, we need to talk. I can't keep living this lie." Then another, "I've met someone. Actually, you know her." My hands grew cold as the next message appeared, "It's Ashley." God, I know how this sounds, but we've fallen in love. Before I could process that, the final message arrived, the one that would shatter everything. "She's pregnant, Madison. 4 months along. I've already emptied our account, $47,500. I know it seems cruel, but she needs me now. We're starting a family. Please try to understand." The plates in my hands felt suddenly heavy, but I set them down with deliberate precision, each movement carefully controlled. A hollow laugh escaped my throat. He actually thought explaining it like this would somehow make it better. 13 years of marriage, and he still didn't understand who he was dealing with. The parallel wasn't lost on me. 6 years ago, I had watched my mother crumble under the weight of my father's betrayal, receiving similar messages of false remorse and hollow explanations. She had been unprepared, vulnerable, trusting. But I had learned from her mistakes. Each message from Daniel wasn't just breaking news, it was confirmation that my preparations hadn't been paranoia after all. Daniel thought he was writing the ending to our story. He had no idea he was merely setting the stage for my carefully crafted revenge. As I called Ethan to dinner, I typed out a single response, "Congratulations. Let him think I was broken. Let him believe he had one. The game was just beginning, and I had been preparing for this moment longer than he could imagine. Tonight, we would have dinner as if nothing had changed. Tomorrow, Daniel would learn exactly what happens when you mistake patience for weakness, and preparation for paranoia. Mom. Ethan's voice pulled me back to the present. You're doing that thing again. Where you get really quiet. I looked at my son, studying his familiar features. He had my eyes, observant, careful, seeing more than people expected. Just thinking about some changes that are coming, sweetie. Sometimes change is necessary. As we sat down to eat, I felt the weight of the hotel receipt in my pocket, the first piece of evidence in what would become Daniel's complete undoing. He thought he had orchestrated the perfect escape. In reality, he had walked right into my trap, and by the time he realized it, it would be far too late. I watched Ethan eat his dinner, his movements so like his father's, the way he held his fork, the slight tilt of his head. My phone buzzed again, this time with a longer message from Ashley. Please, we need to talk. You don't understand. Daniel says he has everything figured out. He says once the divorce is settled, we can all live together in the house. He says you'll understand eventually. A cold smile played across my lips. The house. Of course. That was Daniel's real plan. He thought he could walk away with everything, my savings, my home, my life, and simply move my sister in to replace me. The same sister I had raised, protected, loved after our mother's death. The irony wasn't lost on me. 4 months ago, when I found that hotel receipt, I had done something that would prove to be Daniel's undoing. While he was working late, I had sat at my laptop, carefully moving our assets. The joint account he had just emptied? That was just the surface, a small fraction of what we really had. The real money, over $380,000, was already safe, tucked away where he couldn't touch it. The house he thought he could claim? It had always been in my name. The business he had dismissed as a hobby? Last year alone it had brought in $275,000. But Daniel had never bothered to look closely at our finances. He had been too busy playing the role of the successful husband to notice that his wife had been quietly preparing for war. Mom, Ethan said, pushing his plate away, can I be excused? I have homework. I nodded, watching him leave the kitchen. Soon, he would need to know the truth. But not tonight. Tonight, I would let him have one more evening of innocence before his world changed forever. My phone lit up one final time. Another message from Daniel. I know this is hard, but Ashley needs me. We never meant for this to happen. Please don't make this ugly. Ugly. I almost laughed. He thought I was the one who would make this ugly. I took a slow sip of wine, the expensive bottle Daniel had been saving for a special occasion. This seemed fitting enough. Tomorrow, he would learn what happens when you underestimate a woman who has already survived one man's betrayal. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The morning after Daniel's confession dawned cold and clear. I had barely slept, but my mind was razor-sharp, focused on the tasks ahead. My first call was to Catherine, my lawyer, the one I had quietly retained 2 months ago when the first signs of trouble appeared. Everything's ready, Catherine's voice was calm and professional. The paperwork has been prepared exactly as you requested. Are you sure you want to move this quickly? Yes, I replied, watching the sunrise paint my kitchen in shades of gold. He won't expect it. That's our advantage. I could hear her shuffling papers on the other end of the line. The house is secure, it's in your name only, predating the marriage. The business assets are protected. What about the joint accounts? He emptied them last night. $47,500. I allowed myself a small smile. Exactly as we predicted he would. Perfect. Catherine's tone held a note of satisfaction. That makes this easier. Self-help in divorce proceedings never looks good to a judge. I'll file the papers this morning. By noon, all remaining assets will be frozen. I ended the call and checked the time. 7:15 a.m. Ethan would be up soon for school. I needed to maintain normalcy for him, even as I systematically dismantled his father's life. The locksmith arrived at 8:30, after Ethan had left for school. All locks, he confirmed, toolbox in hand. Every single one, I nodded. And I need it done before noon. While he worked, I made another call, this time to my bank. The manager's voice was sympathetic as I explained the situation. Within minutes, my personal accounts were secured with additional verification measures. Daniel wouldn't be able to touch them, even if he tried. My phone buzzed constantly throughout the morning. Messages from Daniel, from Ashley, increasingly desperate as they realized their plan wasn't unfolding as smoothly as they'd expected. I ignored them all. At 11:45, my doorbell rang. A courier with divorce papers for Daniel, right on schedule. I had them sent to his office, let him receive the news in front of his colleagues. Catherine had been thorough: adultery, financial misconduct, abandonment. Every detail documented, every claim substantiated. The afternoon brought the first signs of panic. Daniel's calls became more frequent, his messages more aggressive. What the hell, Madison? Frozen accounts? Divorce papers at my office? You're trying to humiliate me. I watched the messages roll in, remembering how my father had reacted when my mother finally stood up to him. Men like them never expect consequences. They mistake silence for acceptance, preparation for paranoia. You need to let me in the house, his next message read. My clothes, my files, everything's in there. Stop being childish. I forwarded the message to Catherine, who responded immediately, perfect. Let him document his own lockout. Everything's being recorded. By evening, Ashley joined the chorus. Madison, please. This isn't fair. We need that money, I'm pregnant. Daniel says you've frozen everything. We can't even access his credit cards. Fair. The word echoed in my mind as I prepared dinner for Ethan. Was it fair when they betrayed me? Was it fair to my son? Mom. Ethan's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Is Dad really not coming home? I put down the spatula and turned to face him. 11 years old, but his eyes held an understanding beyond his years. No, honey. Dad. Dad's going to be living somewhere else now. With Aunt Ashley. His question hit me like a physical blow. Of course he knew. Children always know more than we think they do. How did you figure it out? He shrugged, looking older than his years. I heard them once, when Dad picked me up from soccer. They were arguing in the car. Ashley was crying, saying something about telling you the truth. My hands clenched into fists, but I kept my voice steady. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Are you going to make them sorry? His question surprised me. Like in your stories about Grandma? About how you wish she'd fought back. The stories. I had told him about my mother over the years, always as cautionary tales about standing up for yourself. I never realized he had understood their deeper meaning. Yes, I said finally. I'm going to make sure they understand that actions have consequences. He nodded, seeming satisfied. Good. Dad always said you were too nice. That you'd forgive anything. A small, fierce smile crossed his face. He was wrong about that too, wasn't he? By nightfall, the first phase of my plan was complete. The house was secured, the accounts frozen, the legal machinery in motion. But it wasn't just about the money or the property. It was about power, the power they thought they had over me, the power I had been quietly accumulating while they mistook my silence for weakness. My phone lit up with another message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Madison, it's Carol from the office. Daniel's making a scene here. He tried to use the corporate credit card and it was declined. He's not taking it well. I saved the message. More evidence of his instability, his financial irresponsibility. Every reaction, every angry outburst, every attempted violation of the newly established boundaries, all of it would help build my case. The next message came from Ashley, this is cruel, Madison. We're family. Daniel says you're trying to destroy him, but I know you. You're not like this. But she was wrong. She didn't know me at all. The Madison she knew, the supportive sister, the understanding wife, that person had died the moment they chose to betray her. In her place stood someone else, someone forged in the fires of past betrayals and tempered by careful preparation. Around midnight, after Ethan was asleep, I sat in my home office reviewing the day's events. On my laptop screen, bank statements and legal documents told the story of Daniel's financial unraveling. His credit cards were maxed out, $23,000 on the Visa, $18,500 on the MasterCard. He had been spending recklessly for months, probably setting up his new life with Ashley. The doorbell rang, a harsh, insistent sound in the quiet house. Through the security camera, I could see Daniel standing on the porch, swaying slightly. Drunk, probably. His tie was loose, his shirt rumpled. Madison. His voice was loud enough to carry through the door. Open up. This is still my house. I watched him through the camera, making no move to respond. After a few minutes, he slumped against the door. Please, his voice was quieter now. I know I hurt you, but this is too much. Where am I supposed to go? I pressed the intercom button. That sounds like a you problem, Daniel. Not mine. For God's sake, Madison. I need clothes for work tomorrow. My laptop, my files, everything's in there. You should have thought about that before you emptied our accounts. My voice was ice cold. Consider your belongings collateral against the money you stole. He straightened up, anger replacing desperation. Stole? It was our joint account. And now it's evidence of financial misconduct in our divorce proceedings. Thank you for documenting the exact amount in your text messages, by the way. That was helpful. He stared at the camera, realization dawning on his face. You planned this. No, Daniel. You planned this. I just prepared for it. I paused, letting the words sink in. Now get off my property before I call the police and add a trespassing charge to the divorce filing. As I watched him stumble back to his car, I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only a cold certainty that this was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles. But I was ready. I had learned from my mother's tragedy, transformed her weakness into my strength. The last message of the night came from Ashley. He's staying at my place tonight. He's a mess, Madison. Is this what you wanted? I typed a single response, no, Ashley. This is just what you both deserved. Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and began reviewing the next phase of my plan. The house and accounts were secured. Tomorrow, we would begin dismantling Daniel's carefully constructed professional reputation. After all, what sort of manager steals from joint accounts and maxes out credit cards to support an affair with his wife's sister? Everything was proceeding exactly as I had planned. Daniel and Ashley thought they were living a love story. They didn't realize they were actually characters in a revenge tragedy, one where I was writing the ending. 3 days after changing the locks, I sat in Catherine's office, reviewing the latest developments. The morning sun cast long shadows across her mahogany desk, highlighting the stack of documents before us. Daniel's lawyer finally reached out, Catherine said, a hint of amusement in her voice. They're requesting an emergency hearing for temporary access to the house and a restoration of the joint accounts. I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. And given that he documented his own financial misconduct in those text messages, it's not going well for him. She shuffled through some papers. His lawyer's good, but she's working with nothing. Every move Daniel makes just strengthens our position. My phone buzzed, another message from Ashley. He lost his job, Madison. Are you happy now? They suspended him when they found out about the corporate credit cards. I showed the message to Catherine, who added it to our growing file. Daniel's professional unraveling hadn't been part of my original plan, but his own panic had done the work for me. He tried to use the company cards after I froze his accounts, leading to an internal audit that revealed months of questionable expenses, hotels, jewelry, cash advances. His lawyer is also pushing for a settlement, Catherine continued. They're offering to sign over any claim to the house in exchange for unfreezing $150,000 from the investment accounts. I almost laughed. They still think that's all there is? That he knows where all the money is? Apparently. Catherine's smile was predatory. Should I counter? No, I said firmly. Let them sweat. Every day that passes makes their position weaker. Walking out of Catherine's office, I checked my voicemail. 3 messages from Daniel, each more desperate than the last. The final one made me pause. Madison, please. I'm sleeping in my car. Ashley, she kicked me out. Said she can't handle the stress. Said this isn't what she signed up for. Just let me come home. We can work this out. Home. As if he still had one. I picked Ethan up from school, noting how quiet he seemed. Everything okay, sweetheart? He stared out the car window for a long moment. Dad called me. On my cell phone. He was crying. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did he say? He said you're being cruel. That you're trying to destroy him. Ethan turned to look at me. But that's not true, is it? You're just making sure he can't hurt us like Grandpa hurt Grandma. My throat tightened. Yes, honey. That's exactly what I'm doing. That evening, Ashley showed up at my door. She looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. Her hand rested protectively over her slightly swollen belly. 5 minutes, she pleaded through the intercom. Please, Madison. I need to talk to you. I considered ignoring her, but curiosity won out. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. You're killing him, she said without preamble. He's lost everything, his job, his home, his dignity. The man I fell in love with, he's disappearing. The man you fell in love with? I raised an eyebrow. You mean my husband? The father of my child. She flinched. I know we hurt you. But this revenge, it's too much. We need help, Madison. The baby is no longer my concern. My voice was ice. You both made your choices. Now you get to live with them. He says. She hesitated. He says you must have been planning this for months. That no one could pull this off without preparation. Were you just waiting for us to slip up? I studied my sister's face, the face I had watched grow from childhood, the face I had comforted through countless heartbreaks. No, Ashley. I was preparing because I refused to be mom. I refused to be blindsided and broken by a man's betrayal. That you and Daniel handed me the perfect opportunity, that was just karma. We could still be a family, she whispered. Once everyone calms down. Family. The word tasted bitter. You destroyed any chance of that the moment you decided to sleep with my husband. Tears rolled down her cheeks. What am I supposed to do? I'm pregnant, alone. That sounds like a you problem, I echoed my words to Daniel. Not mine. After she left, I received a call from Daniel's lawyer. Mrs. Harrison, my client is willing to sign a full confession of adultery and financial misconduct. He'll forfeit all claims to the house and business. In exchange, he's asking for a one-time payment of $75,000 to help him get back on his feet. No, I said simply. Mrs. Harrison, please be reasonable. Your sister is pregnant. And that's relevant to me how? A pause. My client is sleeping in his car. Again, not my problem. Is there anything else? The next morning brought news that made everything even sweeter. My boutique chain had been featured in a major business magazine, highlighting our expansion plans. The article praised my business acumen, mentioning the projected revenue of $500,000 for the coming year. Daniel's response was immediate. Is this why you've been so calm? You've been sitting on this success all along? Making me think your business was just a hobby. I didn't respond, but I did forward the article to Catherine to add to our file. Let him realize exactly what he had lost, what he had never bothered to understand about me. Later that day, I received an unexpected visit from Daniel's mother. She had always been kind to me, in her way, though she had babied Daniel throughout our marriage. Madison, she began, her voice quavering. What you're doing to my son, it's inhuman. He's broken. I invited her in, offered her tea. As she sat in my kitchen, the kitchen she had once criticized for being too modern, I decided to be honest with her. Did Daniel tell you everything? About emptying our accounts? About getting my sister pregnant? She stared into her teacup. He made mistakes, yes. But this systematic destruction of his life is exactly what he planned for me, I finished. He thought he could leave me penniless, homeless, humiliated. The only difference is, I saw it coming. He says you must have been planning this for months. That no wife could be this prepared unless. Unless what? Unless I was paranoid? Suspicious. I leaned forward. No. I was just smart enough to learn from history. From watching my own mother destroy herself over a man's betrayal. She left without finishing her tea, her last words a whispered, I don't even know who you are anymore. But she was wrong. I knew exactly who I was, a woman who had learned from her mother's mistakes, who had transformed vulnerability into strength, fear into preparation. That night, as I helped Ethan with his homework, my phone lit up with a final message from Daniel, I get it now. All these years, I thought I knew you. Thought you were this sweet, trusting woman who would always forgive. But that wasn't you at all, was it? You were just waiting, watching, preparing. I never really knew you. I smiled at my phone. He was right about one thing, he had never really known me. He had seen what he wanted to see, a devoted wife, a forgiving sister, an easy target. Now he was seeing the real me. And it was far too late for him to do anything about it. 1 month later, I stood in my newly renovated kitchen, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows I had recently replaced. My phone buzzed with a message from Catherine, final divorce decree signed. It's done. He didn't even show up to contest it. I smiled, pouring myself a fresh cup of coffee. Of course he hadn't shown up, Daniel could barely afford gas for his car anymore, let alone his lawyer's fees. The man who had once swaggered through life with such entitled confidence was now sleeping on friends' couches, those friends growing increasingly tired of his presence. My phone buzzed again, Ashley this time, I had to move back in with Dad. The apartment. I couldn't afford it anymore. Daniel hasn't sent any money in weeks. He won't even answer my calls. I archived the message without responding. Last I'd heard, Daniel had been fired from his third job in a month. Something about showing up drunk, ranting about how his wife had destroyed his life. His professional reputation was in tatters, his credit score destroyed, his name becoming synonymous with failure in our circles. Mom. Ethan's voice called from upstairs. Can we have breakfast together? I made toast. I smiled at my son's thoughtfulness. He had matured so much in the past month, showing strength that made my heart swell with pride. We sat together at our kitchen island, the space feeling more peaceful than it had in years. As we ate, I received another message from a mutual friend, just saw Daniel at the grocery store. He was trying to use a maxed-out credit card to buy basic supplies. When it was declined, he just broke down. Started crying right there at the register. I showed the message to Catherine later that day during our weekly update meeting. She added it to what she called our A victory file, a comprehensive record of Daniel's downfall. That evening, I was surprised by an unexpected visit. Ashley stood outside my door, her pregnancy now clearly visible. She looked awful, expensive clothes replaced by worn maternity wear, dark circles under her eyes, the glossy shine gone from her hair. Please, she begged through the intercom. Just 5 minutes. I considered ignoring her but decided to let her witness my stability up close. I opened the door but didn't invite her in further than the entryway. He left, she said without preamble. Daniel. He's gone. Said he couldn't handle the shame anymore. Said everyone knows him as the guy who lost everything to his wife's revenge. She placed a protective hand over her belly. What am I supposed to do now? I looked around my beautiful home, peaceful, secure, mine. That sounds like a consequence of your actions, Ashley. You chose this path. I'm your sister, she whispered. Don't you care at all? You stopped being my sister the moment you decided to sleep with my husband. I straightened an already perfect picture frame. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have dinner to prepare. Later that night, after putting Ethan to bed, I received one final message from Daniel. It was long, rambling, clearly written under the influence. You won, Madison. Is that what you wanted to hear? You destroyed me. My career, my reputation, my future, it's all gone. I'm leaving town. Don't try to find me. Not that you would. You never needed me, did you? All those years, I thought I was the successful one, the provider. But you were just letting me believe that. Playing the supportive wife while preparing for the worst. God, I was so blind. I sipped my wine, an expensive bottle from my growing collection, and forwarded the message to Catherine. Another piece for the victory file. The next day, I celebrated my freedom by taking Ethan to his favorite restaurant. As we enjoyed our dinner, he asked the question I had been waiting for, are we better off without them, Mom? I looked at my son, so perceptive, so strong. Yes, honey. Sometimes losing people who betray you is the best thing that can happen. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Like with Grandma? Except you did what she couldn't. Exactly. I reached across the table to squeeze his hand. I made sure we would never be victims. 2 weeks later, word reached me that Ashley had been evicted from our father's house. Her constant emotional breakdowns and demands for money had become too much even for him. The last anyone had heard, she was looking into homeless shelters that accepted pregnant women. My lawyer called with the final updates on Daniel. He had been spotted in a small town 3 states over, working as a barback at a dive bar. His attempts to find professional work had all failed. My documentation of his financial misconduct had made him unemployable in his field. My phone buzzed one last time, another message from Ashley, perhaps her final one. I get it now. Why Mom never recovered from Dad's betrayal. The shame, the helplessness, the complete destruction of everything you thought you knew. But you turned it around. You made us feel what she felt. Was that your plan all along? I didn't bother responding. Instead, I walked through my quiet house, straightening pictures, admiring the peace I had created. In the hallway mirror, my reflection smiled back at me, confident, strong, unbreakable. As I checked on sleeping Ethan and headed to my own bedroom, I felt nothing but satisfaction. I had taken their betrayal and turned it into triumph, their attempt to destroy me becoming the foundation of my greatest victory. Daniel and Ashley had thought they were writing a love story. Instead, they had become cautionary tales, warnings about what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, preparation for paranoia. The game was over, and I had won. Completely, utterly, irrevocably.